First, there is a long list of noteworthy Mainers who have achieved remarkable things. And high on that list, without question, is Frances Perkins, who was not born here, but is forever identified with her family's farm in Newcastle.
We told you about Frances Perkins' remarkable career last week, and tonight 207's Don Kerrigan reports on the farm and the Perkins Center, which could be in line for a new national honor.
Nearly 2 centuries ago, this farm began supporting the Perkins family, making bricks and raising crops, and eventually helping to raise and then nurture a woman who would bring profound change to America.
The motto of her college class was "Be ye steadfast," and I think that sums up precisely Frances Perkins. Very steadfast.
Frances Perkins, born in 1880 in Boston, spent part of every summer on her family's farm in Newcastle.
Every summer she would come back here and spend time with her grandmother, and her grandmother encouraged her to pursue, her dreams, but pursue leadership that is founded in community values, something that she observed and witnessed and experienced in her time in Maine.
That history fills the old farmstead, now restored as the Frances Perkins Center.
Frances really pushed back on Victorian notions.
Director Giovanna Lockhart says the young Frances went out and did just what her grandmother had told her to do.
I mean, not only was she challenging gender norms of the time, her ideas about what the role of government should be in order to help people was quite new. I mean, when she went into government, there were no labor laws.
Frances Perkins became the leader of labor reform in New York City. And when Franklin Delano Roosevelt became president in 1932, he named Perkins Secretary of Labor, the first woman ever appointed to a presidential cabinet.
She goes in and she says, "Okay, I will take the position, but I have a list of demands." And on that list of demands were a 40-hour work week, unemployment insurance, bans on child labor, something she had seen firsthand, doing her work in the Consumers League and in fire safety law creation. Social Security, which they didn't call Social Security, it was, sort of old age insurance.
Social Security, signed in 1935 with Perkins looking on, permanently changed the lives of older Americans. So this is where her desk was.
Yes. So this is her typewriter. We've recently cataloged everything in the house. And so
the Perkins Center is filled with her books and belongings, her many awards.
AWA was the American Women's Association.
And much of it appears as it might have when Perkins lived here. Even the stone walls on this property have some significance. We're told that Frances Perkins was here in 1939 listening to the radio in her car and leaning against this wall when the news came on that World War II had begun. And all of this is why the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, along with National Park Service staff, came to visit, because the Park Service is seriously considering making the Frances Perkins homestead a national monument.
There are only a handful of national monuments in this country dedicated to women. And Frances Perkins is arguably one of the most important women in American history.
State Senator Peggy Rotundo is a board member of the Perkins Center and a strong supporter of national monument status. What would national monument status and the involvement of the Park Service do that you can't do now?
Right. It brings national attention to Frances Perkins and to her work, and to the fact that her policies impact the lives of Americans every single day.
These places and the stories they tell ensure that current and future generations know how pivotal women have been in shaping the country we have and the country we aspire to live in.
The Secretary and her deputy heard from a variety of local and state officials, historians, and even Frances Perkins' grandson, who grew up in the house.
But every summer, she would come here for a few weeks, and then good things would begin to happen for a kid.
All agreeing a national monument would be the ideal next step. From the department, no promises, but lots of praise.
I will tell you, when our team first came here, they came back giddy. Because nothing gets an historian giddy like walking through a place and seeing the typewriter this person typed on.
Becoming a national monument would have the Park Service take over caring for the Perkins homestead and telling and sharing the story of a remarkable American woman who was, in many ways, a trailblazer.
That she had to be the first because and she even said, I took that role because there will be women that come after me that will want to and be qualified to do these leadership jobs, you know, and if I don't do it, I can't wait for someone else.
Frances Perkins, they all say, deserves a monument.
She has quite the story. President Biden announced in March that he wants the National Park Service to have a better representation of the role of women in U.S. history.
If he does declare it a national monument, the Frances Perkins Center would retain the right to a portion of the 57-acre property with the intent to build an education center to further highlight the work and life of Frances Perkins.